There are many other...
This is right, Arab.
Hello there and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from London. I'm Ollie Barrett, and coming up we've got updates for you on stories developing around the world. Let's begin with the headlines. The formation of Afghanistan's new government is in its final stages, and it may all happen as soon as Friday, according to sources.
Possibility of coordination against ISIS-K with them?
It's possible.
US Army General Mark Milley suggests that it's possible the United States will seek to coordinate with the Taliban on counter-terrorism strikes in Afghanistan against Islamic State terrorists. The Taliban claims to surround Panjshir, the only remaining province resisting its rule. This as the resistance movement claims it fought off attacks, inflicting heavy casualties on the Taliban. At least 7 people die in New York in flooding-related incidents as Storm Ida hits the northeast United States. New York City Mayor declares a state of emergency. And Cristiano Ronaldo breaks Iranian Ali Day's record for the most goals in international men's football. The Portugal captain scores with 2 late headers to hand his team a 2-1 win over the Republic of Ireland in a World Cup qualifier.
Do you believe it? In the end,
And 2 weeks after taking Afghanistan and after celebrating the official end of the war post the US pullout of troops, the Taliban are gearing up to form a new government in Afghanistan. According to reports, the Taliban is all set to unveil the new administration. You are looking at pictures shared by Ahmadullah Muttaqi, the chief of the multimedia branch for the Cultural Commission Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. He says the country's Ministry of Information and Culture has made arrangements for ceremonies at the presidential palace. The announcement would lay out key appointments. According to interviews with the Taliban and other sources in Kabul and Kandahar, Sheikh Haibatullah will be the supreme authority of the new Islamic government. Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, co-founder of the Taliban, who has served as the group's deputy leader, is in line to be in charge of day-to-day affairs as head of government. Key positions are expected to be given to Sirajuddin Haqqani, another deputy and an influential operations leader within the movement, and Maulawi Muhammad Yaqub, who is the son of the Taliban movement's founder, Mullah Muhammad Omar. So far, the Taliban have made the following appointments. They've named a governor for Kabul, a mayor for Kabul, governor for Nangarhar, governor for Khost, a head of the Sports Federation, and a minister for higher education. Officials to run the Ministry of Public Health and the Central Bank have also been named. The type of government and whether there will be an inclusive council of some sort is unclear. One thing we do know is that the Taliban face huge challenges. United Nations officials have warned that Afghanistan is looking at a humanitarian catastrophe, with large parts of the country suffering from extreme drought conditions. Our correspondent in Afghanistan, Anas Malik, with this exclusive report.
The Afghan Taliban are now inching towards formation of a government, and sources within Taliban say that the approval to the government formation can come as soon as today as well, and that would be in Kandahar. Sources also indicate that the announcement to the government formation would be done in Kabul, and that could be done by tomorrow during the Friday sermon. the council or the head of this setup would be Mullah Hibatullah Khunzada, and he would be running affairs through an executive council, members of which are yet to be known as yet. This is what sources within the Taliban tell us. They also say that the top leadership is currently in Kandahar, putting final touches to the government formation bid. Additionally, if I talk to you about the situation in Kabul as we speak, at the Afghan presidential palace, preparations for this much anticipated government formation ceremony have been ongoing. We saw those visuals coming in from the Afghan Taliban's media team as well. And by the looks of it, they look all geared and charged for this government formation announcement. Anas Malik in Kabul, Afghanistan, for WION, World is One.
WION's Anas Malik reporting there. Well, Afghanistan's new Taliban rulers are struggling to keep the country functioning after the withdrawal of foreign forces. There is an administrative vacuum, with the Taliban yet to announce full details of how it will govern. Prices of commodities have soared, there are long queues outside banks, and plenty more besides.
The new era of Taliban rule in Afghanistan was marked by the departure of foreign troops, bloody attacks on civilians by Islamic State, and now an economic crisis. The country has a sinking currency and rising inflation. More than a third of the population lives on less than $2 a day. Banks, which closed as soon as the Taliban took Kabul, have now been ordered to reopen. But that means hours of queuing thanks to strict weekly limits on cash withdrawals. Many offices and shops are still shut, and some salaries have been unpaid for weeks, meaning even the relatively well-off are struggling to put food on the table. This man is a market vendor.
2 weeks ago, the market was good and people were buying. But now the situation's not good and no one's buying. And people's money's stuck in the banks and no one has money to buy anything.
This market in Kabul has been flooded with people desperate to sell their goods. Remittances from abroad have also been cut off, so many families are trying to sell jewelry or household goods, even if they have to accept a fraction of their value. Prices for vegetables were up to 50% higher, according to vendors, while petrol prices were up by 75%. Taliban officials have said the problems will ease once a new government is in place, but the structural problems run deep. The country has no significant exports to generate revenue, and aid, which accounted for more than 40% of economic output, has abruptly disappeared.
The Taliban has surrounded the only remaining province resisting its rule. Since the fall of Kabul, the valley of Panjshir has been the only province to hold out against the group. The Taliban's called for the National Resistance Front, who defend Panjshir, to lay down their arms. A senior Taliban leader, Amir Khan Motaki, said the Taliban had made many efforts to negotiate with the leaders of opposition forces, but says talks failed. It comes after intermittent clashes between the Taliban and the Resistance Front were reported in the valley since Monday. But the National Resistance Front claims the Taliban have suffered many casualties in the fighting. Speaking to WION, a spokesman for Panjshir leader Ahmad Massoud claimed that at least 350 Taliban fighters have been killed, 280 injured and 35 taken into custody.
In the past 2 days, battles were going on in the two different fronts. Andarab Valley in Khawak High Pass, as well as the mouth of the Panjshir Valley, where Taliban were heavily defeated. They have suffered lots of casualty. Around 350 of them have been killed, and more than 280 of them have been wounded, and 35 others have been detained. The forces of the National Resistance Front of Afghanistan are performing very well. We were ready for this kind of circumstances. Of course, we were preferring peace, but Taliban break the war, and now the war is going on in different fronts. And we are ready for that, and we already shown that we are capable to defend our positions, but this will not be only to defend Panjshir. This is the first period of war. Later on, the war will be expanded in other fronts.
Residents and fighters in Panjshir remain defiant, saying they will defend their province till the end.
Right now we are in the border of the Kyrgyzstan and Panjshir province. These are the resistance force of the Panjshir Valley. They are resisting against the invaders that they are coming to Panjshir, that we are calling the Taliban. So we have a lot of equipments with ourselves. We will defend from our valley, from our territory until we have one drop of blood in our body. So we will resist until we martyr in here.
Under the leadership of Ahmad Massoud, son of a former Mujahideen commander, several thousand members of local militias and remnants of army and special forces units have been holding out against the Taliban. They call themselves the National Resistance Front and have vowed to defend the valley as the Taliban encircles the area. Panjshir is a narrow valley in the Hindu Kush Mountains, located approximately 140 kilometres north of Kabul. It has limited entry points and it's shown resistance to outside interference for over 4 decades. Next, Afghan television anchor Beheshte Argand made headlines around the world when she became the first Afghan female journalist to interview a member of the Taliban. Now she's fled her country. Like hundreds of thousands of her countrymen and women, she feared for her life and that of her family under Taliban rule.
She was the first Afghan female journalist to interview the Taliban after they took over control. Beheshte Argand quickly adjusted her headscarf when the Taliban showed up at her studio uninvited, 2 days after their takeover of the capital, Kabul. They demanded to be interviewed, and rapid-fire questions they received. Her live interview made headlines around the world. It seemed part of Taliban efforts to promote a more moderate face, as the group promised to respect women's rights. She says it was about a week later that her life became a nightmare. With the help of Nobel Prize winner Malala Yousafzai, she fled to Doha.
The moment the Taliban don't accept. So when a group of people don't accept you like a human, they don't have any good picture from you on her mind, on his mind. So it is so difficult.
Many of her colleagues had left the country despite Taliban assurances for women to access work and the freedom of the media. Argand says the Taliban ordered her employer, Tolo News, to enforce all women to wear a hijab, and that female anchors were suspended in other stations. She says the Islamist group also asked local media to stop talking about their takeover and their rule. Argand knew she had no choice but to flee.
So when there is no future for me, how can I stay in Afghanistan? How can I continue my job? I just want to become voice of my people, not voice of a group of people came and said, tell what we want.
She called Malala after interviewing the Pakistani activists in the past and asked for her help to be placed on Qatar's list of evacuees. Now in a temporary residence with her brothers, she says looking back, she realizes how much she loves Afghanistan and the profession she chose over her family's objections.
When I sat in the airplane, I said to myself in my heart, now you don't have anything.
Next to the United States, and flash floods from tropical storm Ida have swamped New York City. The remnants of the storm caused massive flooding in the US financial capital and has left the boroughs of Brooklyn and Queens inundated. At least 7 people have lost their lives in flash floods in New York. Eyewitness videos show rainwater gushing into subway stations. Flash flooding turned platforms and stairwells into waterfalls, bringing a century-old system to a halt. Nearly all of New York's city subway lines were suspended. Roads in New York City have been submerged too. Videos posted on social media show multiple motorists stranded in their vehicles in Yonkers. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio declared a state of emergency due to what he called a historic weather event, and he urged residents who could to move to higher ground. The National Weather Service recorded 3.15 inches of rain in New York's Central Park in an hour, far surpassing the 1.94 inches that fell in an hour during Tropical Storm Henry on August the 21st. That was believed at the time to be the most ever recorded in the park. In Staten Island and in Queens, vehicles were floating in floodwaters.
There's like an Audi or something. Really? They've got to move up a little more because they're close to getting stuck with all this. Look who's that? Oh my God! What is that?
Hundreds of flights have been cancelled at nearby Newark, LaGuardia and JFK airports. Some extraordinary images coming out of New York after yet another 2021 extreme weather event. But it wasn't just New York. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy also declared a state of emergency in response to Ida, which has been downgraded to a tropical storm. At least 5 flash flood emergencies were issued, stretching from just west of Philadelphia through northern New Jersey. Hurricane Ida slammed into the southern state of Louisiana on Sunday, bringing severe flooding and tornadoes as it blazed a trail of destruction in the north. It caused heavy damage in Pennsylvania, New Jersey and Maryland. The tornado ripped streets and toppled electricity poles. More than 70,000 homes and businesses were left without power. Now, hurricanes are common in the southern United States, but scientists have warned of a rise in cyclone activity recently. Scientists say that climate change poses an increasing threat to the world's coastal communities. With the aim of preserving ancient nomadic traditions, each year Kyrgyzstan holds equestrian games, featuring some of the most popular nomadic pursuits of Central Asia. This year the event was held on the 30th anniversary of the independence of the Kyrgyz Republic, and participants from around the world came to Cholponata for it.
The riders here are playing the ancient game of Kokpuru, a popular traditional nomadic game. The name varies across Central Asia, but the goal is the same. Riders from opposing teams battle it out on the field to get hold of a goat carcass. If that sounds brutal and barbaric, that is because it is. Also known as bokashi in some regions, this literally translates to goat pulling. This is just one of the numerous ancient hunting and nomadic games held at this year's Kyrgyz Equestrian Games.
In the International League, we have the national team of the Uzbek Republic, the national team of the Moscow region, the team of the Voronezh region. In fact, there should have been many participants. The United States of America participants were due to arrive, but due to the number of vaccinated, they postponed the trip to Nuruz.
You'd be surprised at how popular these games are. This year's prize fund was the highest it has ever been.
We have a very good prize fund this year. It has broken records. We have almost 4 million soms, or approximately $47,000 in the prize fund alone. And the expenses for the organization amounted to more than $180,000 approximately.
Apart from Kokpuru, the event also featured games such as Salburun, Salbaroon, which is basically a series of tests that involve hunting with dogs of the Kyrgyz breed as well as ground and horse archery. The concept of Salbaroon is derived from the nomadic tradition of hunting and protecting the herd from predators.
Salbaroon gets better every year. Skills improve, young people become more interested, and these games also began to be included in the sports component of the national games. And today we, together with the Sports Directorate, provided the people with spectacular games.
That's not all. There are various stages of the games, one of them being the hunting with golden eagles, where some well-trained birds of prey demonstrate their skill of catching bait. The event saw the participation of 11 countries, and the organizers hope to expand the games further going forward.
This year, due to the pandemic, we could not expand the geography. Next year, there are plans to expand the geography of the participants.
This year, the event was held in time for the 30th anniversary of the independence of the Republic of Kyrgyzstan on August 31st. The aim of the organizers in holding such games is to preserve the national traditions and culture of the Kyrgyz people. Bureau Report WION, World is One.
And that is a wrap on this edition of WION Live Broadcast from London. Thanks very much indeed for being with us once again. Up next is WION's Climate Tracker. For more global news, do stay tuned to WION. World is One.
This is right, Arab.